All right, let's start with what is your name? Where are you from? And where do you live now?
Some cosmin. I live currently in Colorado. I Gotcha, stop it. I live in Colorado, originally from Romania, but I've lived most of my life in Utah.
How long were you in Romania?
3 years, almost 3 years, 2.5, 3 years.
And how long in Utah?
Since I was 5.5, I was in Seattle for a small amount of time, lived with a family there, and then came to Utah, and I've been there since I've been 6 years old, other than just doing some military stuff in the South.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. So you're born in Romania and you're there until you're 3 years old.
Right.
Do you know who your mother is?
Zero idea. Was
Do
told maybe the first name was Demetria, but that doesn't seem to be super reliable.
and you have no idea about any family in Romania, correct?
Yeah, I have very, very, very little information. I've been told a couple of things, but that's nothing that's could help me locate anyone.
So did you like live in a foster home, or where did you live when you were in Romania?
So if anyone knows anything about Romania at that time, they were under, so I was born in 88, and they were just a year before the fall of communism under Nicolae Ceausescu. He had implemented banning abortion and contraception. He was exporting everything out of the country. This caused just a huge economic collapse, and no one could actually provide for having children. He also almost enforced women to have children by kind of giving an award for more children. So, but of course, people couldn't take care of their kids. Government then said, "Hey, we'll take care of the kids. We've got these institutions," and that obviously under that kind of an environment is not going to work. So they just had these very poorly set up government institutions that were primarily orphanages. And fortunately, about a year after the fall of communism, people were becoming aware that that was happening. They were living like North Korea. No one really outside knew exactly what was going on. So people all of a sudden heard the news about all these little dying children, and so a bunch of people went.
It was a lot more than that. Like these are homes filled with children that sometimes none of them were ever touched in or really cared for at all. A lot of them had severe disabilities, and they were understaffed, abused, malnourished. I mean, there weren't too many children that came out of those orphanages whole and complete. So, I mean, it's amazing that you're here and that you survived that. You also have a twin brother, right?
Yeah, I do have a twin brother. He still lives out there in Utah. So,
and you and your brother were adopted by an American family, right?
Right, an American family from Seattle area. I think they were kind of unprepared for that kind of task, I guess. I'm not exactly sure their whole reasoning, but after a couple of years, they had to place us up for adoption. But that's where we did end up with the family that we did get, and they've been really wonderful people.
Do you have or have you had contact with the original family that adopted you?
Very, very small amount.
Do you harbor any ill will or resentment?
In ways, probably. Yeah, I did when I was younger. I guess the only thing really is I remember having dreams a lot of getting abandoned a lot. Like, oh, you're going to have to go live with these people, or oh, that people. There was actually pretty pretty weird guy that lived in my neighborhood. He and his wife were just different, and he was kind of a crazy guy. But I would always have these dreams that that my parents were saying, "Oh, you're gonna have to go live with so and so. You know, we're gonna give you up for adoption." And just if you knew the kind of guy this guy was, he wasn't a bad guy, but he wasn't all the way there. So it was just kind of like, oh no, that's who I have to go live with, you know? So it was kind of a funny thing, but it'd also be like kind of a fearful thing. So it was a weird thing, but it's not a recurring dream I had a lot as a kid. But
And at this time,
they did,
when
so I'm pretty sure if I didn't get out of there, I'd have been toast. So whether it
you've done a lot of research on the situation, like you're pretty well informed about what was going on in Armenia during the time that you were born and that you lived there.
right.
What would you say the percentage of children that made it out successfully or are still there, compared to like kids that didn't? What would you estimate in your experience that is?
You know, I really don't know what the percentage is. And I think one of the reasons is they don't really have an accurate number. That's from what I've read in the past, is the actual, because if you look at some of the reports, even the European Union, usually, they say, oh, between 5 and 7,000 when they're referencing something, whereas they say, oh, it can be as small as 20,000, but it could be as large as 500,000, right? So there's just
What
an
was
extreme.
how long was this abortion ban in place?
I
You
believe
know?
this in the late 60s, maybe 70s.
Wow, really? So 20 years, more than almost 30 years.
Yeah, and he just was doing, and that was his things. He just kept decreasing their livelihoods. He built this big palace. It's actually second in size to the Pentagon in weight,
Wow.
and it's just this massive palace that he built for himself. It's now
And
used by the Senate.
and
Right.
these orphanages, they were packed with children. There wasn't, they were cribs,
Yeah,
rooms just full.
the nurse ratio per child was definitely not adequate.
I've
Sure.
seen some of the pictures online for the viewers. Like, they should do a little bit of research. That's intense.
20
And you don't remember any of that time there, right? Or
No.
no? Okay, that's good. I'm actually really glad for that.
Thoughts of kind of stuff I might remember, but it could have been dreams that I remember as well. So I'm not exactly sure. But I know the expenditure was, I think it was around 28 cents per child per day. Now it was the 80s around that time, but that's still, even in the 80s, I'm pretty sure a pretty small, significant amount.
That's pretty amazing that you and your brother made it. I'm impressed.
Right?
Okay, so you're adopted by an American family in Seattle. They had no idea. I mean, between your brother has some medical issues, and like you and your brother had some, I'm sure, behavioral issues and stuff when you guys were younger, I'm imagining.
Right. Yeah. I think I used to walk at first.
Yeah, and as a person who wants to do good things for the kid that they adopt, I just would like to say that it's pretty amazing that that like they gave you the opportunity. They knew that they weren't going to be able to give you and your brother what you needed, and so and they didn't try and send you back to, did they? Or I don't know, did they try to send you back to Armenia, or they just wanted to keep you in America?
They did they did go through LDS adoption services, which it has its obvious controversy, right? Because they shut down actually because gay marriage was starting to pass in states, and the church just didn't want to have to. They didn't want to be the church that had to go before the Supreme Court to fight religious rights, kind of thing. So instead of continuing their adoption program, they just shut it down. But at the same time, if you're getting adopted through the LDS adoption agency, they're only accepting applicants who are going to be more than capable of taking care of children.
That's
So
fair.
that is a
That's fair.
benefit.
It's a double-edged sword, though. I mean, and you were brought up. The church became a big part of your life. You know what I mean? Like both families were pretty devout Mormons and in the church, and you were raised as such as well with both families, I'm assuming.
Right. Exactly. Very, very active LDS family. So for those, I guess, that wouldn't know, Mormon Church kind of has a lot of names. So it's either Mormon, LDS, Latter-day Saints. They like to officially have everyone call them the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But if you really want to have that mouthful, go for it. So I just go with LDS.
I think that's pretty common in Utah.
Yeah.
All right. So you're living with your second family now, you and your brother both.
Yeah.
And
Right.
And you're how old at this point? Like 6?
Yeah, almost 6 years old. Yeah.
Okay. So you're school age. Did you and your brother go to school like normally with everyone else, or?
So here's what I remember is that I went 1 year to school, but I think I left pretty soon on. It was kindergarten, and I think I left pretty early on because I think they just determined I wasn't ready. And then I did end up, my first year of school that was full in kindergarten, I went to the same school my mom taught. That was kind of cool. So she did
cool.
that, like, ability to kind of get in immediate contact with me if needs be. And I did have like severe attachment problems.
Do you remember those years?
Yeah, it was, I don't know. Yeah, that anxiety was bad. I would just remember the thought of just constant abandonment once I was left alone. And it was, I remember getting pretty sick over it. I would throw up and stuff.
That sucks, man. That sucks.
Not anymore though. It's time heals.
Right.
Trauma helps you learn that shit, right?
So I'm going to ask the awkward question here because a lot of people don't know. You are not a straight white man. And so how old were you when your sexual preferences started to play a role in your life?
Probably started, the thoughts probably crept in around 12 or 13.
And you're in a devout Mormon family.
Right.
And your parents have, up to this point, I mean, they've met your needs, they've integrated you well into society, but you are committed to the church at this point emotionally, right? Like you have, you would consider yourself to be a devout Mormon.
I was a devout Mormon. I will always say that I always had a dirty mouth. I always swore. However, I remember though, I would say things like, gosh fucking damn it. Like I didn't say that God's name in vain. So I would never say like God damn it or anything, or Jesus fucking Christ.
But when we say devout Mormon, we're saying like you're going. I'm not a Mormon, so I don't know what the appropriate terms are for for everything. But like you're going to the weekly meetings with your fellow Mormons. You're going
during the week, you're doing your Boy Scouts at church. So they're making sure that a good amount of your week does have church involved.
And outside of school, your only social interaction other than your family is with your church social group, correct?
Right.
Your both peers.
I did have one friend that I'm still friends with today who was not Mormon, but for the vast majority of other people, and that was a special circumstance. He was a kid that got adopted, so my parents were like, "Yeah, let's go ahead and let him be friends," But there was that. But other than that, for the most part, you're spending most of your time around other Mormon kids, especially if you're in Utah. Then it's easy to kind of enforce that as parents.
It very much is. Yeah, it's a culture thing. So
it's not like only 2 other Mormon kids in the school.
Yeah. and all their parents talk, and they all go to the same churches, and yeah, it's very organized. It's like a Mormon crime family.
Wow, totally could be. Yeah.
But I mean, you're a happy kid for the most part, right? Like you feel you've at this age you're hitting puberty. You've moved past those feelings of abandonment for the most part. You know, you're much more comfortable in your own skin. You're really happy with your church and your life, and then you start experiencing attraction towards men, basically. And like
That,
how did
that wasn't really what caused the problems at first. It wasn't that. Someone one day, it was my sophomore year of high school, and I wasn't so much struggling with the gay stuff. I did, but it was like a side thing, and for some reason I was allowing it to not crisscross. Like I was
are you
keeping it.
having having relationships with women and stuff? And
But I'm talking to guys online,
okay,
right? This is before any kind of apps, right? So this is stuff like talking
back
to
in the
guys,
MySpace days.
the Yahoo and MSN days, right?
Don't tell people we're that old.
Right. So Yahoo chat rooms, gosh, those were, yeah, goddamn, those things were cesspools.
Dangerous. Yeah, it was like the dark web on
Oh,
Yahoo.
I was 14 years old talking to full-grown adults that
Yeah.
should not have been talking to me, you know?
Well, and then not just that, but in Utah, you're beginning to sense that there's a lot of predators out there. You know, schools, churches, Boy Scouts. You know, there's yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? Like your local Starbucks, pretty much everywhere you go, you're starting to see, you know, basically see the world for what it is.
Yeah, the rosy glasses start to fade.
So high school, your freshman year of high school, everything comes to a head. What happens? Like how does it all spill out?
The stuff that really started getting me to question the church, I guess, was not so much the gay stuff, but more someone just one time started making fun of me for being Mormon. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, and he started talking about the salamander letters. Never heard of this shit in my life. And it happened to be this guy in Utah who his name was Mark Hoffman. He was creating all these forgeries. And
Yeah. He's got his own documentary and stuff.
Oh yeah, like the net murder among the Mormons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he had a real hatred for the
Oh,
church.
yeah.
They're very suppressant in like it's strange how it works in Utah. I think it's underestimated just how every aspect of your life is touched by the church in some way, whether it's finding a job or housing or friends or so. All right, so you get teased and you realize your first thought is not to become defensive, it's to critically think about it and to say, hey, maybe I am.
I was defending it. And my point was I wanted to start looking into Mormonism because I was like, I know the church is true. I'm going to prove it.
Oh man, I haven't heard that phrase in a long time.
That's what screwed me over, you know, and my parents, I think, kind of regret a little bit of telling me, yeah, you should learn more about the church so you can defend it.
Well,
So,
you tend to get laser focused, and but let's take a step back. Are you open about your sexuality growing up? Like, do your parents know? Are you hiding it? Like, does nobody just
I
ask
brought it up
questions?
when I was 16, and I think they did their best to try to brush it off as, yeah, this is just being a teenager. So
Okay.
and let's not talk about it kind of stuff and whatnot.
And like you understood that, and so you just respected that and never really brought it up again, or like how did you feel about that?
Yeah, not until I got into a serious relationship with this guy in Colorado, that's when that kind of got brought up again. And it was kind of funny because at first I was dating this guy, And for a year, they were pretty much like, "How are you and your friend doing?" It was pretty funny because it was like, "Yeah, my friend."
Because
Like
they
we have a
love you and they're trying to be supportive, but they also love their church and they don't, they have to condemn you. And the church's stance on this is that if you are gay, you should live your life as a heterosexual, and you should not acknowledge your gay life, and your family should shun you if you are being openly gay. Like, you get excommunicated from the church.
They've kind of started changing it a bit. Now it's
But we're
more
talking about your high school years.
oh, right. Yeah.
The church is very harsh about this. A lot of people don't know what the church's influence was in the early 2000s. I think it was when Proposition 8 or 9 happened in California. It was Prop 8. Yeah. Okay. And how it like it's there was, yeah. So, okay, let's recap. It's high school.
If you want to know more about the Mormon Church's involvement, watch 8, the Mormon Proposition. It's a great production on HBO about the Mormon Church's involvement in trying to get involved in a California election, even though they're home-based.
It's crazy how things work in you, but we're talking in your life. You're 18, 19, 20 years old. You are you're questioning your sexuality, you're questioning your church, you still have a good relationship with your family, but it's predicated on just pretending that you are not what you are. Right. Are you starting to have questions about where you came from and your family? Because you grow up knowing you're not adopted, and like, when do those questions begin to filter into this madness as well?
I'm always interested in more in Romania and its history and where I came from. Because my mom had actually let me watch a documentary called Shame of a Nation on 2020, back in the 90s.
I remember that.
It was a pretty brutal documentary. Like, normally
it was a very brutal time. It was it was a holocaust of women and children, and it was a terrible, terrible time that even still people don't want to acknowledge and talk about. And yeah,
pretend communism never happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, I think all I can do is chalk it up to cognitive dissonance and, being a survival mechanism or where I don't quite understand the science of it, but a whole nation of people. So for you though, the church is entangled in your past. They are essentially one and the same. They hold the keys to the kingdom, what little information is available to you about where you come from and who you are. And, they're also, they play a big role in your life. And so, like, what age would you say, when, like, that kind of bitterness and that anger that you felt for a long time kind of...
17 is when the anger really started brewing. That's when anger entered my life for sure. And it was everything. Yeah.
And how old were you when you decided to leave the church?
21 is when I decided I no longer believe this.
And how did your family react to that?
I was kind of a dick about it. I always share opinions. So, like, I was like, it was because they really wanted me to follow all the rules, and some of the rules I just wasn't down to follow, obviously. And so I was like, why am I gonna, so I would try to give my reasons as to why. Like, I knew the church was just a complete farce, and why should I rely off any of it? And that always did cause problems at first.
Are you receiving what you would consider appropriate mental health support during these years?
Oh no, not at all. It actually was quite the opposite because the mental health I was getting from a guy, he was a guy in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir who I had in mind that he had some kind of counseling degree of some sort. He had none. He was just some guy that was in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir and in my church, my ward. And he was trying to be this second father figure to me, which I didn't need. My dad was just plenty fine of one. And so he started doing some weird stuff. And that's always made me feel iffy about therapy because he ended up doing some stuff that just was no good. So he while I was struggling, the mental health I was able to rely on was just making my mental health even worse. So he was a problem for sure. And the entire community respected him, and they actually still do. His funeral was huge, was widely, a lot of people went to it. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he's still considered. And there were some fishy things that happened. There was a thing that happened where a kid's mom in our ward, she passed away. He went to go live in California with his uncles, and he paid for this kid who's 15 years old to hop on a plane so he can come save this kid. The FBI arrested the kid halfway on the layover in Vegas, right? And then the FBI came and investigated him. Nothing ever happened. I didn't even ever get asked any questions. They didn't come talk to me at all. And it was very apparent. I mean, my mom was paying this guy to basically kind of help me out with homework, life.
As how old are you now?
33.
And have you had these hard conversations with your parents at this point in your life? Like, if you sat down with them would you say you've worked through all of that, or would you say that there's still a lot of unspoken, is there still that?
I don't hold it against them at all. And the reason being is my parents are extremely intelligent people. But the thing is most people that are in religious cults are not stupid. They actually typically are very intelligent people.
Seeking solace from the madness that is the world.
You can't really take delusional beliefs, and then place the blame on that necessarily.
You're a very evolved human being.
Well, they're more positive. The positive of what I received from them massively outweighs the cognitive dissonance that may have caused some problems.
So here we are, a healthy man. You got your shit together. You just escaped a toxic relationship. You got your girl Dacia, your best friend, your dog.
We'll go ahead and let everyone see this angel.
Angel, my ass. I watched her drag it on.
Oh my God. Oh, that was the craziest day of my life with the dog. Man.
That was a good day. So, I mean, we've had some good times together. Do you remember when we heckled that man who was chasing that woman, and he got so embarrassed that he turned around and ran the other way?
That was the best thing ever. Oh.
Yeah, she was running down the street in her bra or something, or underwear. And,
he was just.
He was a big guy, so he wasn't moving very fast. But man, he had the "I'm gonna kill you" eyes.
Yeah, we had some premium real estate, didn't we?
Yeah. I loved that porch. I missed that house.
Was great.
Okay, so now you have taken a DNA test, right? You took an ancestry?
No, I have. I want to.
Okay, tis the season. It's $60 right now.
Right. Oh, is it?
So, yeah. So listen, take a DNA test, my man.
Where?
When you're ready. I don't want to push you.
Where at? What's the good
ancestry
one?
So I have learned in my journey.
I'm gonna give the Mormon Church my DNA, huh? Great.
Yeah, we sign contracts and stuff. And, unfortunately for people like you and I who don't have a history and who don't have a past and who can't really be helped by modern investigative techniques, we have to go outside the box. You know what I mean? Like, so here's the great thing about DNA is you pay for one test. And I learned all this on my TikTok. Okay. All of this is new knowledge for me. So I paid for my ancestry and then I downloaded my genome sequence and then uploaded it to other DNA sites for free. So I paid for the one DNA test, but it gives, yes, there are other access out there, but I also have found that there are these wonderful people on Facebook called search angels, and they are forensic genealogists. So and they're very, very good at their job, very, very quick, very, very efficient. For them, it's like, it's just a gift,
Right.
So a hard-earned one, I'm sure. But they take your genome and they log into your account, and then because your account will give you matches. And here's the wonderful thing about the Mormon Church, and the best advantage that I've had about living in Utah is for my $99 that I paid for access to my ancestry DNA, it also gave me access to every single person's genealogy history that they've done on their ancestry.
That's wild. No one is better at genealogy than the Mormons. No one.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That you know how everyone talks about that big old cave the Mormon Church has with that vault. Yeah, most of that. I mean, I'm sure they have other things as well, but the vast majority.
They own downtown. Like they took a Main Street. You remember when they took Main Street and they closed it down? They changed traffic in downtown Salt Lake City and they put up a park.
Supreme Court.
Yes. Okay.
Half a street block literally caused a Supreme Court lawsuit. And who was it that sued the Mormons? The fucking Unitarians. That was the best fucking part. It was like the peaceful, loving Unitarians brutally sued the fuck out of the Mormon Church.
Good time.
The Mormon Church did win, though, in the end.
It's true. It's true. So after everything that you have been through, I just have to say that you're an amazing human being, and I have always adored you, and I've always loved you, and I'm really glad that you did this for me and for the YouTubers, and I really hope that my subscribers love you as much as I do. I'm sure they will. And when you are ready to go further on your journey, if that's a thing you decide to do, because for you it's another country, another culture, family that quite possibly doesn't even know you exist. What would you say that the current political temperature is in Armenia right now? Like, if you were to go and find your family and say, hey, I'm an orphanage baby, how do you think that you would be received? Like, how do you imagine it going?
Oh, like who my biological family is?
Yeah.
Or to just one over there?
I mean, either. I mean, ultimately, if you wanted to meet who your family was, you'd probably have to take a trip to Armenia.
Well, here's the problem: is it can go both ways. It can be some very good, morally driven people, but communism really messed them over. Corruption and bribery is still a huge thing there. So one thing that has happened is there are people like myself. They look out for family members. Those people are like, oh yeah, I remember that kid. Let's use him. So that can be the possibility of what you're dealing with. So
do you want to meet, like, if you took a DNA test, okay, and somebody said, I found your mother, would you want to speak to her, to meet her?
I feel like I would, but I also feel like it'd be Russian roulette. So
Mm.
I'm
Are you
down.
prepared? Are you prepared for that either way? I mean, what if your mom turned out like my mom?
I'm sure you
And
realize I like a risky life.
yes, I love that about you as well. I love that about you as well.
A lot of risk.
So, all right. Well, I mean, yeah, I just think that you have an amazing story. You and your brother are miracles. Because okay, and how did we meet? Let's do that. Where did we meet? Do you remember?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, Danville.
We were caregivers for the same shitty company. Uh,
Right.
they were terrible. I mean, they weren't the worst, but they were they were one of the worst companies I ever worked for.
Yeah.
And but we did the best we can for our clients. And you know, you were always had this ability to connect with your clients and like see past their disabilities in a way that wasn't fake. It was completely genuine. And so that was awesome.
Yeah, it was easy, easy to get along with those guys. It was always that was kind of the yeah, and all the tough things they put you through. You're like, you can't comprehend that you pissed me off, so we're cool.
Yeah, right.
know?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I love you, even though you're hitting me. Please stop.
You know, it's honestly helped me with the career I am in now because
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that. Um, you live in Colorado, right? We're not going to say where in Colorado. And
yeah,
you currently work for the prison system, right?
as a liberal.
As a liberal. Oh, all right. So here's my question. Do you feel you have to do a lot of masking? Like that you have to not be your genuine self when you're at work? Like how are you able to use your gifts and still be incognito? Is that a thing that you do?
You have to use the skill of being yourself while also adapting to a world. Here's what I feel. When I go through those gates, it's like Narnia, just a little more dark. uh, so uh, so it's just more of understanding that you're going to be seeing some things, having to understand some conversations, and the way people are going to react to things are just utterly and totally different. And so there may be some that if you as a person, you might end up having some conflicting personalities with people that have been living their whole lives in that system. And
Also coupled with the fact that it is an us versus them environment.
hugely, yeah.
So regardless of your own personal and political beliefs, your life is ultimately dependent on your fellow guardsmen. So I mean, we could, if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to, but this is where I go because I like the hard questions. You're an awesome person. And if you were put in a situation where a guard was abusing an inmate, how do you feel like you would react to that? Because
Definitely avenues to it.
oh,
Unfortunately, you may not be able to respond the way you would want to. That's the downside. You can get it taken care of, but you may not necessarily have it taken care of in the way you might on the street or in your own home.
how long have you been at this job now?
Just since October.
Have
Yeah,
you
and
experienced
yeah,
have you
like
experienced any abuses towards you or towards any of your inmates? Like, have you felt that you've been in a position that makes you uncomfortable?
several times, not as a result of facility error, but it's just because it's a prison. And there have been a couple of times where like I had to kind of puff up my chest towards someone, and I'm not really used to. I usually will back down to someone trying to puff over me. I'll just be, hey man,
I'm trying to imagine you being a badass at work because you are a very submissive person, and this is a job where you can't do that.
cross to submissive. Yeah.
So are you embracing, do you feel like it's like making you embrace this like badassness that you've got? That
yeah, it does kind of, because you have
yeah.
to kind of come across as someone that you're not while still maintaining yourself, because they know how to sniff BS too. And there are a lot of guys there that are just as intelligent, if not extremely more intelligent than I am, that are inmates. So you might have someone that has a PhD in psychiatry and is just looking at you the whole time, and you don't know. You really don't know where these people come from. That's the crazy. There's a lot of unknown.
I got mad respect for you because I couldn't work in a male prison. As a female guard, I have such a anger towards men and abusers.
Most CEOs that I talk to that are veterans that have been in for a long time say that a female prison is actually much worse, because they're much more wild, and they're a lot more. The men, I guess, in prisons are a lot more organized in the violence and way everything works. And then within women's prisons, it's just absolute chaos. Nothing even makes sense. They just
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I grew up in group homes, so it's real.
Expect the opposite.
Yeah.
Women are a bit more classy, but we need to remember where we are.
We're all animals. We're all animals, especially when you put us in cages and treat us like animals.
Yeah, and they do get treated like animals, but some of them do kind of act like it.
I mean, everything comes full circle. You know what I mean? Like you spent the first few years of your life at the mercy of strangers, and here you are, the stranger with the mercy. So,
and that's where I have a lot of compassion, and I'm having to learn to tune down that compassion, actually.
Oh, that's got to be hard. That would be really difficult for me too.
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to find the knob of emotions and just turn them down a little bit sometimes, because you see what some of these guys have to go through, and policy is policy and procedure is procedure. And then there's also risk of getting yourself hurt. So a lot of times you just kind of need to stay out of things that you know are going to happen, but there's just nothing you can do to prevent it. And you just have to move past it, I guess.
So you are the Switzerland. Yeah, it'd be hard for me, man. I got mad respect for you because that would be so a lot of, I don't think many people know this, but I went to school for criminal justice. I was going to be a juvenile probation officer, and my second year of college, I realized I did not want to be a part of the system. It was not for me, the rules and the regulations, just as a personal identity. Like I wouldn't, I wouldn't be able to handle it. You did. I'm just,
I
the
think
idea that stresses me out.
You have to be able to bend some possible morals, and not morals, but I don't know how to put it. You have to bend the way you would do things you have to be able to live be able to adapt to a way that most people are not used to, I guess.
Well, prisons are literally a different lifestyle. When you walk into that prison, you are no longer, cosmin from Colorado. You are, officer.
Right.
We're gonna. So, and those are. Yeah, those are different people. You have to be a different person. You're not there to make friends with people. You're not there to, pass judgment. You're just there to make sure that their environment is as safe as possible, given the resources that you're given. Right. And my ex-husband spent a lot of time in prison. And so I've heard, all of his friends during our 20-year marriage, they were all convicts as well. So I've heard the convict side and the majority of them don't really have too many issues with the guards. I mean, they don't like being guarded, but they don't have personal beef per se with the guards that are decent and you know, who aren't out to get them or you know, to corrupt the system or whatever it is. So
You have a
yeah.
lot of different personalities when it comes to COs.
Mm-hmm.
That is for sure. And I can see why, because you can't, what I've come to understand about corrections is there isn't much training that you're given, and it's due to the resources, obviously. And they do kind of take whoever is willing to apply that can pass a background check and things like that. So you do get, I feel like the vast majority of people, I think, are in there for the right reasons. But then I think you do get that stereotypical, I just want someone to kind of beat up on because that's what happened to me when I was younger, you know? So there is that for sure.
I hope that you don't run across those people and that they are not, you know, that they, yeah,
No, they
man.
exist.
It's just,
I'm not gonna lie,
you know,
they
it sucks to imagine my friend being in that situation of having, you know, to like, to not just see and experience those things, but have to stand up against a system that, you know, doesn't like people to stand up.
usually they
So
get hurt though. So
that's what I mean.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's intense, and I'm, you know, I'm proud of you for trying to be the compassion in a system that has very little.
Yeah.
So
And what I'm always saying, I feel the inmates when I'm talking to them is I'm still trying to find that median, you know, because I don't want to come in here acting like I'm, you know, this or that, but I'm also trying to make sure that I can maintain order and whatnot. And so it is interesting because it is interesting when you come in as a CO. They do intentionally treat you like, we want you to know your shit today and not tomorrow, you know? So, and if they ask you something and you can't respond or you can't help with the situation, they'll make sure it seems like you've been there for 6 years and come on, man, you know, it's intentional. So you do what's played, you know, you have the convict games and you have CO games, you know, like one thing I do, right, is one thing obviously they can't do is gambling. So they get put on lockdown, they'll leave out their cards, right? And that they're playing and gambling. And sometimes they forget and they leave their ledgers out. And then I shuffle all the cards. So I've stopped gambling, and honestly, it can end up saving someone's life in the long run because maybe someone on there can't pay what they owe.
it's true. It's
So,
dangerous games in prison. Like it's all lighthearted and stuff until someone gets a tooth fucking brush in the neck, and then
yeah,
it's up. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And
it's not a world I hope to ever fucking visit, but I would like my own mother to take a vacation there for a while. So
yeah, I can understand that. Absolutely.
all right. So thank you, Cosmin from Denver. I am going to end the recording. Give me a second.